Shalom, weirdos and witches. It is I, your host, Keats Ross. This is the PRAGMAGICK Podcast, and I will keep this short and sweet because the following conversation is quite extensive. It has truly been a privilege to host Saroth the Mage. Not only are his dabblings in audiomancy and spellcraft via his Saroth the Mage experiment YouTube channel, or his video casting, podcasting with the eclectic crew of The Lost Word, Saroth and I are very, very similar in that we both have overcome dark paths with the aid of magical praxis. In this discussion, we will chat about our dark desert days, our continual but fluctuating beliefs of the unseen realms, our excitement and criticisms of current occulture, which seems to be a common thread with these recent episodes, the use of media magic, dead geniuses and their problematic roads, and what that would mean for our current kind of outrage culture. But I think most importantly, we discuss magic as redeemer. Before I go, I want to thank my patrons, new and old, from Baz of the Lost Word podcast, Alex Bolin of the Alex Cast, Eric Arneson of Audiomancy, Derek Hunter of Love Chaos, Vanessa Kindle, Charm the Water. I want to thank all of you for your continual support. And that's it. So Slither Hither Weirdos and Witches, you're about to view and or hear the conception of what I believe to be a long and wondrous international friendship with the new We the Hallowed Haunt, Mr. Saroth the Mage. Stay corny 2020 and haunt on. Where are you located right now? Let's get where that is.
I'm in Aberdeen, Scotland.
Nice.
Which is a beautiful sort of, it's kind of on the same latitude as Moscow, so it's very cold. It's mostly made out of granite, so it's very grey. They call it the Granite City or the Silver City, but I mean, it's quite a depressing little place, to be honest. It's my hometown. Never quite got up the momentum to get out of here.
That's beautiful.
And that's in part due to problems I had as, in my early 20s, drifted into some serious drug abuse, heroin addiction, crack cocaine, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So my origin story is, we could begin it where does it start? The first book on magic I ever got was out of my high school library. It was David Conway's Occult Primer when I was about 14. And I read about this fantastic world, the astral plane, and it seemed so separate, and it seemed a place that only mediums or clairvoyants or someone with some kind of talent like that. So I read it assiduously, but I never thought I would actually become a magician.
Right. So, this was just kind of a peripheral want. Were you always a spiritual type person? Were you always a seeker?
It's difficult to say. I was always a very bookish young child.
Right.
I spent a lot of time just reading. Like James Herbert was the first author I really got into when I was, possibly preteen. Then I moved on to Stephen King. I loved Hammer horrors. I had a Hammer horror for me, and it just summed up all that sort of gothic women with big breasts and sexiness. When you're just becoming an adolescent, you're not quite sure what sex is, but it's kind of there. Star Trek also is quite erotic for me.
So it makes sense then that the occult would be, something very tasty to you.
Oh,
because
absolutely,
it's this hidden kind of ideology and stuff. So that it started with that book.
Yeah, and I think also I was dying to grow up. I wanted to grow up really fast because the kids around me seemed like they were so young, and I was really interested in girls at a very early age. I was very into music, and it just I wanted to be a teenager long before I was a teenager. And I also discovered my granddad had a big radiogram. I've got very fond memories of my grandparents. My maternal grandfather pretty much brought me up, and he had a big radiogram, and I discovered one special record, and it was a Rolling Stones record, Through the Past Darkly. So I was listening to that. I was going to see Greece twice a day in the summer holidays, just dying to be a teenager and dying to get out of my mundane little child world, you know?
Yeah. I mean, already I see the parallels between us pretty consistent. It's amazing. It makes me think, too, this idea of needing to grow up fast, that probably led to maybe the issues that we both had in our early 20s and coming of age, because we didn't have our childhoods early.
No. My dad was a major alcoholic. He was a captain in the merchant navy, but he would be away for like 6 months, and then he'd come back, and there'd be all kinds of chaos in the house. So, and I had to also look after my little brother. So I did have kind of adulthood forced upon me in many ways.
Yeah, I was also what we call a latchkey kid. The kid that walks home alone and takes care of the siblings. Yeah, so I absolutely read you on that one.
But it makes us stronger, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty much the crux of what I want to talk to you about, because after watching your videos, I always ascertain that we kind of come from that same ilk. And it does, I think, begin with outsiderdom. It does begin with, feeling out of place, maybe out of time, out of mind,
Absolutely, and I recognize that in your videos as well. I have to say, I thought there's a brother from another mother right there.
Yeah, exactly. Strange ilk,
Yeah. I think not to say we're hugely intelligent or creative, but we seem to be reasonably intelligent and creative, and I think it's the internet that has brought us together. We're little isolated souls in these one-horse towns, and now. Just in the last 5 or 6 years, there's like an internet community building and people are connecting with each other. And I think that's really interesting. And that's part of the reason I started the channel.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I think you contacted me. It's been a while now. I mean, we've been wanting to do this for so long, and I apologize. I've had just the craziest month and a half or so, but I've really always really I found your work to be endearing. I've always felt that there's a large sea of things once you get into this line of thought, right? There's a large group of maybe nefarious bad actors and weird,
tell me about it, man.
Weird intentioned people. And it's been it's been nice to know that you've got an honest voice among it.
Well, absolutely. That's one of the main things. That's another reason why I started the channel was, I saw a lot of kind of occulty magic videos where it just didn't seem realistic to me. These guys are summoning up demons like that, evoked, and they're bros, and they're giving. It's just bullshit, man. There's so much bullshit out there. It's just, I want to give a more nuanced view of magic, because it's a very subtle thing. You don't have demons appearing in puffs of smoke when you do a ritual. It's a very psychological process,
right? Yeah. I wondered. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, I would say I'm getting to the point where I'm almost dismissing the whole idea of anything existing. Now, this is a temporary phase. I switch feet on this every day, but I'm doubting the existential existence of like spirits and demons that live in this other place. Mm-hmm. I really do think they're all parts of our psychology in some way.
Honestly, that's where I've been. I had to take some time off in the past month and a half to kind of reconstitute myself within this, because it's not dissimilar to spiritual burnout, but it's kind of a lot. Very, you know what I mean? It almost is spiritual burnout after listening to these people and understanding that I know less and less as more I know, the more I know, the less I know, the less I know.
Yeah,
has been like
yeah. At 16, I thought I knew everything. I could explain God, the universe, everything. Right. The more you actually learn, the more you realize, Jesus, I know nothing at all. And that's why I don't want to come at things as a teacher or an expert, God forbid. I'm just a chaotic experimentalist.
Right. You're a practitioner, for sure.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say with the other point, with the idea that, this is, I said this in podcasts before, that it is essentially, it's a good psychological, recalibration. This stuff is great for that. And I think sometimes at the end of the day, that's all you need it to be. And I think once you get through the waves of people who really like the pomp and circumstance of the dog and pony show, as we say here, I had sex with the demon, and it was real and whatnot. I mean, there's a place for that, and I don't want to discount people's experiences, but that has not been mine.
No, absolutely not. And it gets views. I presume it gets them loads of money. But are they just bullshitting, like famous bullshitters from other, like the conspiracy world? I've got a bit of a tie-in with a lot of the guys from the sort of skeptical, like CW Chanter and guys like that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I've been following CW for a bit.
Yeah, so exposing bullshit's a lot of what I'm about as well.
Yeah,
I want to give people a real idea of the occult, because when I came into it, I thought, why can't I astrally project? And the ideas, even that first book, The Occult Primer, gave me the idea that the astral plane was a completely separate place. It was like entering a room. You'd know when you were in there.
Right.
But more and more, I'm beginning to realize that it's all about the power of imagination and the power of creativity.
So now, as someone like myself, an ex, drug addict, just to be blunt about it, maybe we're always still drug addicts, but that's not in my realm anymore. But I often think back at that. That's kind of what formed me and what helped me get where I am, in weird sadistic ways, maybe, but still to be true. I wonder why we need to take more of a realistic and honest approach, because in a way we have been numbing the psychic senses for so long. We know what it's like to be completely, either out of our mind or completely docile in a weird way.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think possibly we use drugs to try and find that kind of other world,
Yeah.
I used to always fantasize when I was a child. There was a lane. It was a beautiful it was covered in just something out of like Narnia, which books I loved. And there was Jamie and the Toll Booth as well, where a flesh and blood person would just enter this cartoon world. And taking drugs for me was like attempting to get into that cartoon world.
Right. Yeah. But never really manifested that way, right?
No, but I mean...
not with the hard drugs, maybe psychedelics.
Psychedelics have played a huge part in my magical development, if you will. But the hard drugs, heroin is a terrible, horrible drug. But, I'd still maybe wouldn't trade. I maybe wouldn't give it 20 years of my life like I did.
Right. Yeah.
But it was an interesting place to be. And I think not the being numbed out on heroin, but when you're actually in withdrawal, that's when the interesting things, the psychic sort of phenomenon happen for me.
It's almost like, demonic possession too, in a way.
Yeah. I often think of the puppy as an intelligent demon who will invade your body. And it really is, it builds camp in your body.
Yeah.
It won't move about and it won't let you go. It's taken me a long time. And I'm still on a small amount of Suboxone and diazepam.
Yeah, but
that's another one for me.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible though. I often try to reconfigure those experiences. Like I want nothing more than to take the shit I've done in my life that has, been self-serving or immoral in some ways to a degree. I always want to take that and try to figure out a way to make that into something positive, right? And I think that's what why us, deeply spiritual or deeply, I hate to say that, like I'm deeply spiritual, us and I hate to use the word seeker too, if we can come up with another word for this, but people that are always on the hunt, it's this need for clarity of purpose. And I think we're intentful people that just, our purpose got aligned or misaligned. I mean, got misaligned in some ways. And what I was addicted to a lot was that clarity of purpose, was that everything fell except for this thing,
Well, the only thing that matters is you got the drug or you didn't get the drug that day. And if you got the drug, it was a good day. If you didn't, it was a bad day. And it makes your life very, very simple,
Very simple, yeah.
As soon as I got off, in a sense, although, I mean, the fact is we're both survivors of that addiction, but I've lost many friends to it, So that's something that gives a little pat on the back. And I do think that having the people that I know that fell by the wayside really didn't have any other interest. They weren't interested in art, music.
Right. And that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean to come back to is, what
so we
the thing
had
that pulled us out.
Route. Yeah, we had an escape route. Mm-hmm.
But what do you think that was? So you were already kind of, and like I was too, I was peripheral with the occult or with knowledge and spirituality and everything. I've always been somebody that has been deeply interested in it. But what do you think is the thing that pulled us away from that?
Like I say, I think I was always. I wouldn't say it was a means. Drugs were a means to an end, but they always felt like a stopgap for me. I always felt like I was treading water till I found my true will, if you like, because I was
exactly. Yeah.
And I drifted in and out of art school. I was in a band for a while. The band was actually where I picked up my heroin habit. Funnily enough, musicians and heroin, man.
But, I know, walking cliches we are.
But I think what really kicked me out of it was I met a woman who had not been into heroin, and she basically offered me a place to shelter, and kind of just gave me a normal place away from the junk crowd and stuff to kind of recuperate. And she was very into Reiki, and she wasn't really into magic as I'd known it, like Crowley and Burroughs and stuff. But she was kind of new agey, but it was with her that I first had my real flowering as, my first truly weird experiences, which I might go into.
Yeah, no, please do. It sounds like you found a beauty in faith.
Just a life away from, because I always knew there was a life away from that. I always had other stuff going on,
Yeah.
But, you get so entrenched in that mouse wheel of scoring, and and she just gave me a break from that, and then quite wonderful things developed from that relationship, and we're still friends.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's something. There's something so like symptomatic of the material realm about drugs. They're almost like for a person not taking care of these, higher functions of the mind or the subconscious. It's almost like we're all predestined to just kind of drop into the numbing void. Unless we have to dig our way out and find our way. It's the hero's journey in a funny way.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. Yeah.
So after she brought you out, what was it? Was it Crowley that kind of got you more interested into the ritual magic?
Well, I'd read Crowley before my addiction, and I still dabbled with magic while I was addicted. But I mean, you can't devote yourself to, and in fact, I find it still hard to devote myself to serious practice because life gets in the way, Yeah. But I had a very strange experience. She'd been doing Reiki, and she'd been going to like a spiritual center where they did like kind of vague spiritual healing. And I'm really not into that fuzzy new age stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought I can maybe guide her in a way to more concrete magic as I saw it. So it was a kind of mixing of it, and I also thought it was like a mixing of the male and female energies. So one day, she'd been doing Reiki for about a year, and I'd never thought of saying, okay, just do Reiki on me. So one day, she got me in the chair, and, I'm not prone to flights of fancy. I'm very skeptical, and I analyze things to the nth degree. But this day, I just sat there, blanket wrapped around me, and within a few minutes of her doing this Reiki, I suddenly was shot out of my body, and I saw I've told this story before, but I might as well tell it again. And I saw the earth is that like, that classic blue marble photograph. Like I was seeing it from far, far out in space. And I had no idea what was going on. I just but it was like the way I, like if it's a daydream, you kind of flit about and it's, you're obviously still caught in that train of thought. But this was just, there was nothing else there. I was in that vision, out of my body, looking down on the planet Earth. And it was like, I got the corniest message. It was like, we are the Pleiadians, we are the Pleiadians. look at the earth, and I don't believe in Pleiadians, never have, you know.
Right.
So I thought that's a strange thing. If I was to have a vision, I would have hoped it would have been, you know, because I was heavily into Crowley, but
Sure.
it would have been more. This is Horus, you know. You are the new child of the.
Clem Snide comes and slaps you in the face.
Yeah. Or a mugwump comes up.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it was nothing like that. It was a total New Age thing about ecology and all that. And it was apparently, I felt the tears. It wasn't tears of emotion. There was just water coming out of my eyes, and I was kind of shaking. And she sensed there was something going on. So we came out of that. She was like, oh my God, it must have been the Pleiadians. You know, who else would it be? And I was like, I don't really believe in Pleiadians. And why would they give me an ecological message? I'm not terribly interested in ecology. You know, I'm quite a selfish bastard.
Wrong guy.
So that, yeah, totally. So we talked about it, and then we thought, well, if that can happen, let's experiment a little bit more. And I can't remember exactly how it happened, but she was pushing me in a new agey way. So I was pushing her more in a sort of ritual magic kind of way. So the two kind of got mixed up together, and we came up with this hodgepodge of rituals and meditations, and I actually started channeling. It's another thing I came away from it. We got reams, and we used to voice record it and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of it was very beautiful, poetic sort of stuff, but nothing that I would really stand by now. I look upon it as a weird sort of psychological quirk that happened in a time where I was pretty spaced out through being strung out on Earth.
Right. It's like your astral dexterity needs time to practice too.
Yeah. I mean, we did get a lot of valuable ideas. We got the idea that Toth, or Thoth as we used to call them, and then it kind of got mixed in with Thoth and Isis, so it became Thosis. We channeled our magical names. So I do believe that any information that you can look at, it's like tarot cards. You don't believe that the tarot cards actually have supernatural power in themselves.
Right.
They're a good tool for analysis. Well, some do, yeah. But for me, they're just a way of making you look at certain things that you wouldn't have otherwise. So
absolutely.
This channel, so you could look at the channeling process as a kind of cut up of my own consciousness and perhaps some of hers.
Right.
And you have to look at your motivations. Am I telling her what she wants to hear? Which I think in some cases I was.
Sure, but that's unadulterated, right? That's like free speech, or is it automatic, rhyming or automatic
It was just,
freestyling?
I do believe it came from me, but it was perhaps coming from I was in a kind of trance state when I did it,
Well, let's talk about that. Do you think that was simply just a higher conscious, your supra self, or was that, maybe something coming in through you that wasn't you essentially?
I think it was me. I think it was a super self, or the higher consciousness kind of thing. Because, like I say, at the moment, I'm doubting that anything really does exist outside. I don't believe there are spirits lurking about in some undefined fourth dimension that interact with humans, although I could be wrong on that. And but my thinking is at the moment that it was just it accessed a part of my brain that I don't, because the brain is an amazing thing.
Right. I mean, it's just so funny how similar we are. I mean, this past month and a half, I really did take time to kind of sit back and reevaluate, my intentions, or what I, just kind of nominally see as happening. And it always comes down to that it's just, conversation, communion with your subconscious. And that's the highest thing you can commune with. And it's the greatest thing that runs your life. It's not necessarily just this disembodied consciousness from somebody else or somewhere else.
I do believe in the collective unconscious and the archetypal realm. I mean, that's for sure. I've experienced
the neither.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or neither.
Yeah, neither. I would say, but I am. That's why I recently published that Aleister Crowley's introduction to the McGregor's Mather Goetia thing.
Right.
He is saying, these are just specific parts of your brain. And he flim-flammed. He vacillated between, okay, there are objective spirits out there. And that's why I admire Crowley, because he he always questioned what he was doing, and like Robert Anton Wilson would do later.
Exactly.
And, the occultists I admire are the ones that don't just go off on flights of fancy and puff themselves up like certain magicians current on various media platforms.
Right. I know it's really hard. There's a part of me that wants to. I talk to my good friend who's an illustrator and a practitioner all the time, and we kind of gripe to each other about different things we stumbled on with new, this neo magician, or it's almost like this neo chaos magic in a way. But also, the self-serving. It's the what we call the new guru.
Yeah.
And it's really hard because part of my outsiderdom from when I was a kid is always skeptical of anybody that's gaining popularity. So I don't want to superimpose my bullshit on them, but I'm finding a way to discuss this without necessarily naming names, maybe.
Yeah, let's not name names. But I do believe that I don't believe in supernaturalism. I don't think that things can just manifest out of nowhere. But magical effects are very real. Like when I started experimenting with sigil magic, I have no idea what causes that mechanism. But within about 2 months, I'd inherited a huge sum. Well, not a huge sum of money. I went through it pretty quick. But a great aunt that I'd never even known existed. Through a weird chain of synchronicities, my mother had a kind of nurse who also worked part-time in a solicitor's office. She knew my mum and overheard the solicitor saying, "Oh, we're looking for these guys, Alistair and Stephen Ray, me and my brother." She went back and told my mum. My mum got in touch with the solicitor. They were like, "Oh, did you know that your grandfather bought a share in this house? We got tens of thousands of pounds." And it seemed like as soon as I started doing that, everything, I really, after the devastation and, absolute homelessness, really.
Yeah.
Although I did have some support networks around me and I was never completely like on the streets, like begging with a cup. I was pretty much derelict. And then as soon as the magic started and as soon as this Thosis thing started to pick up momentum, everything started slotting into place. So was it me putting myself together or was it some outside force? I just can't tell.
It's hard. I often call it like the paradox of being a coincidence conductor.
Yeah, or a synchronicity generator.
Exactly, yeah. Which is like, well, yeah, everything, all the dominoes fell in place, but would I have noticed, if I didn't put the intention out there first? Would I, would it, maybe it's a gratitude thing with the intention. I think sometimes too, when it comes to ritual work or spiritual work or praxis even, like it's about a future gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
You're saying thank you for allowing these things to happen, that puts me forth to my true will, but in a weird way it's still a surrender.
Oh yeah, I think surrender is a big part of it. After the ISIS magic and me and that, I mean, we were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time and we split up and I kind of drifted more into traditional magic. I started like a self-initiated Golden Dawn. And the Golden Dawn curriculum, especially self-initiated without the help of a lodge or anything, is really not my cup of tea. But for some reason, it's right. Again, a synchronicity. She was in Treadwell's in London, a famous bookshop in London.
Yeah.
And this book, Kabbalah Magic, just fell off the shelf. So she brought it back. We both started working. We split up and I continued working. So I went right through the neophyte grade, doing everything very scrupulously daily because I wasn't working at this point. Went through Zealotr, Theodicus. And at Theodicus, you could say my praxis fell apart, but you could also say I started to work full time. I got a job where I was reasonably responsible and trusted, So, you take with one hand and give up with the other.
Yeah, but I feel, I mean, that's a good example. I keep bringing up this weird hiatus because we're in the same spot now where I'm just coming back into this realm because I needed some time off to get my feet dirty. I needed to feel the material realm. I needed to, focus on the material or the somatic, and
this stuff can definitely sweep you away in a tide of madness.
Right. And, it's an as above, so below thing, truly, and I hear about it all the time. And transcendental meditation, there are naysayers, ex-members who come out and say, I lost everything because that was a place I would escape to. And I just wanted to be there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it makes me think that, that for a time I was caring too much about my head, not anchoring myself, or not my head, maybe my heart. I'm not sure. But I get that when you start to parlay both, the praxis and the material stuff, when it starts becoming pragmagick, I hate to use the term, but like that's
Great
to
term.
me the greatest, idea of what this stuff is capable of.
Yeah. And I think my crisis was I got overwhelmed with the amount I was reading, and and then there's the videos, and then there's the praxis, and there's just so many words and so many competing systems. It just got so confusing for me. I just kind of short-circuited and just like, enough.
And egos against where you should start. Like that was the big thing for me, was just the incessant naysaying about how I did this or where I did this or what I did. Even in my mind, knowing, because reading the text, reading how people like interact with each other in these very disparate, systems. Yeah.
See, I don't know that many other magicians that I can actually talk to. Recently, I've met, I've known Sam for a while, Baz from the Lost Word, which we can maybe talk about later. But I think it's a benefit to maybe not get too involved with too many other magicians and too many other ways of thinking, because I think magic is really about finding your own way through this minefield of psychonautery.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I take that to heart very much. I think often that, and I talked to this about Mitch Horowitz, like we're all speaking the same language, different terms.
Absolutely. This confusion of terms is, in philosophy, you've got more concrete terms. And even, I did English at university, there's definite terms. But in magic, everybody's using different terms, talking about the same thing. And it's very confusing and frustrating as hell,
Yeah. Is that why you kind of started, quote unquote, the experiment? Was, like what I'm doing as well? Is that we're just trying to glean and learn and put ourselves out there?
Yeah. I think so. It was like find the others, that famous Terence McKenna quote.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was very aware that when I split with the magical partner I had, that I just had nobody, and my inspiration level seemed to drop, and I was trying to come off. Last summer was a real turning point for me. I had been, I was in a job. I was solid in the job, but I still hadn't managed to kick the last bit of the drugs, benzodiazepines, Valium, Xanax, all that kind of stuff. So for 2 weeks, I was basically like spun out, mentally ill, really. I had no idea that benzos could do that to a person.
Yeah.
And I started to just watch YouTube. I'd never really bothered with the live chats and stuff, but I started to get involved in CW Chanter's live chat. And I thought, wow, people are like talking to me and being kind to me. And I felt so isolated. And so part of the idea of starting the channel was to continue the conversation with those guys, but just show them a little bit of my occulty ways. Because CW, he's got his own thing, he digs magic, but he's not an occultist as such,
Right. I appreciate that.
It's like, come to my house, I've been to your house, come to mine. So the original idea was like a video diary of me doing the daily Golden Dawn rituals, but that got pretty boring really quick, to be honest.
Yeah.
So then I kind of branched out, and now I'm just trying to now I feel a lot freer with the channel, and I just experiment. Once I realized this isn't going to be like an instruction, because I'm not an expert. I can't teach anyone anything. They can buy a book that will tell them how to do it better than I can. So what I'm doing is just just doing stuff creatively. I've always been into music, painting, and it's just a continuation of that for me.
I wanted to ask you too about that, music and painting, your praxis, that confluence. How do you feel as being, quintessentially, it's you're I hate to use the term, but a YouTuber, right?
Yeah,
You're someone that is vlogging your practice and all that. Like, how has that been going for you? What has been the reception? The idea from the world at large, because you're putting your praxis, you're putting your honesty out there, and I absolutely adore that about you. But I wonder if there's
sometimes I really wonder why I do it.
Right.
And, because I'm not really an extrovert. I think part of the drugs thing was to make me more extroverted, because I always love people and I love being around people, but I'm not naturally an extrovert. So perhaps the drugs, and, I still enjoy drinking. I usually have a couple of glasses of wine when I'm doing a podcast, or I would just clam up,
Yeah.
So I often do doubt the wisdom. Why am I doing this? And I don't know. It's just like it's a niche that's just got to be scratched. I think I got used to performing in the band. Maybe I need an audience. Maybe I'm some kind of weird narcissist. It is. It's fun. It's like watching watching your videos back. And although I never really watch my videos back, I watch the recordings. I can't watch live streams. I just find it excruciating.
Yeah. Do you think there's something about maybe making these hyper sigils about these things that you're doing, these incantations, these spoken word, audiomancy type things, and sharing your praxis? Do you think that emboldens the work? Yeah,
I
think so. I think it. Yeah.
I think they are kind of audio-visual spells in a way, although I never realized that till quite recently.
It seems like you and me, the reason why, I think we inherently gravitate towards YouTube is the connection or the connectivity between viewers. Also, the honesty of having your face on fucking camera.
Yeah. And not having to tell outrageous lies about being best friends with Baal and Lucifer, what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Lucifer, come over here, man, bro.
Right. Fuck me. No, I'm just kidding. But to me, that makes that's what makes this so appealing. And for somebody like me to have a kind of redemption arc with magic and to document it, I think is that much more poignant. So I just always really appreciated it.
Yeah, I saw in one of your videos that you said something about magic as redemption, and I I'd never really thought about it like that, but it totally is. It certainly redeemed my life in many ways. But I always thought of it as a continual pushing of the psychic envelope, because I'd always been excessive in my ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I did something, I would have to do it to the extreme extent.
Yeah,
I think that's why I fell into addiction, but it's also why, the birth of the Saroth The Mage channel was really triggered by, I'm going to call it a working. I was thinking about this today, and it wasn't just a series of psilocybin trips. It was a working with the person that started it all off. Last summer, we did like 5 or 6 really intense psilocybin trips. And that was when I was just coming out of I failed to come off the Valium, by the way. I just had to say, no, this is too much.
Right.
After like 4 weeks of intense mental and physical agony, I was just, okay, just put me on 2 mils a day. That's fine. So after that, we decided to embark upon a major psilocybin adventure. So we had like one before the summer solstice, one on the summer solstice, one kind of midway between that and Samhain. But the real big one for me was the one before the summer solstice. And that was when, I don't know, for me, I'd experimented with psilocybin because in Aberdeen, they grow quite plentifully. I don't know, there's an urban myth, might not be an urban myth, that they now spray fungicides on them. But when I was in like 12, 13, you would just go to the football pitch and they would be just growing all over the place.
It was the same in the Pacific Northwest where I just came from. Yeah,
so
very
they were
abundant.
And, you know, all the guys' older brothers knew about them, so we were taking them very young, before our brains were properly formed. And so there was a night, a very strong trip I had in the Dudley Park, where I realised that, gosh, this isn't all, you know, the mundane little childish fantasies I had about life and growing up. There was much more to it than that. You know, there was another dimension, if you like. I didn't really understand it, but everything looked so beautiful. And I thought, well, this is like the Garden of Eden. I'd never heard of Terence McKenna. I had nothing to judge it by, you know, it was just my own personal experience. But that really opened me up. And after that, I really got into art, like Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, as you would say. I noticed that his paintings were just exactly like you would see on a psilocybin trip. The wavy lines, the excessively bright colours, you know. So that dude was tripping involuntarily, I presume.
Involuntarily? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, but, you know, that brings me to a good point. I don't know if you want this out there about what you do for a living, but working with people with, you know, I think the proper terminology is people with disabilities, right? People first terminology.
For sure. Yeah.
I myself have had I was diagnosed with mental disability, not disabilities. That sounds like I was bipolar. I had been diagnosed bipolar for since I, you know, I was like a late teenager. Didn't do a shit about it. Thought I'm not going to be a slave to a drug, and instead was a slave to pretty much every drug.
Yeah, every other drug.
Yeah, exactly. But I wonder too, like, you know, there's that whole cliche about the shamanistic experience, about how you look for those dented consciousnesses, you know, those like ones that kind of glean elsewhere and like literally think outside the box.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if what we're told by anthropologists is to be believed, then people with various mental peculiarities, you know, the schizophrenics, the bipolar.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people in the magic communities that I've met on Facebook and stuff have either had drug problems, bipolar, schizoaffective disorder, borderline, you know, we're all a little bit mad.
Yeah.
So,
like, certifiably.
Yeah. But, you know, magic is not something a normal person really wants to do, because it takes you far out of your realms of comfort. And, you know, I've often thought that magic was a dangerous and destructive thing, but it's not.
Right.
It breaks down to build up in a better way. I always use the lightning struck tower from the tarot as a perfect example of what kind of initiation does to a person.
Absolutely. That's like the most magical card.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's my favorite card. It just zaps all the false bullshit, and all those bricks, and the red person and the blue person are the hemispheres of the brain. And, you know, that's what magic does. It reduces you to rubble, and then it builds you up. Prometheus Rising, Robert Anton Wilson, classic way of describing that. In another way, where we're involuntary programmed. You know, we have times in our life when we're susceptible to programming, and it just imprints on accidental stuff. Whatever's going on around in our damaged young lives is what we imprinted on. So with magic, it gets a chance, and I'm not sure of the mechanisms again, that it gives us a chance to deliberately imprint new positive stuff.
I mean, that makes absolutely. I mean, I was just meditating on this the other day, about how I think I experience ego deaths at a hyper rate as comparatively to when I was young and, you know, screwed up on different things. So those needed to be the big deaths. Now it's like every day, or like where we are now, thinking about, you know, I don't think that this is supernatural. I think this has everything to do with, you know, our inherent consciousness or whatever. To me, that's also a little death, and it's just little deaths and little deaths until hopefully there's no there's no need for it anymore, but maybe not. Maybe hopefully that there is, I think I can get addicted to the ego deaths. I told this to a friend recently. I probably on the podcast that comes out before this one, which is funny. I don't mean to put this out there too much. But
sneak preview.
Well, I mean, I'm just getting real with some past shit. I subletted my room when I first moved to Portland. When I jumped a train and just ended up living in Portland, I subletted my room to a mushroom dealer, and he gave me mushrooms like I was to sell them. I did not sell them. I took them,
of course,
for months. And I got addicted to coming down. I got addicted to the somatic. I got addicted to oh man, the other realms are far scarier than this. I can handle this, and that really showed me a lot as far as I think drug use and as far as even magical praxis,
Yeah, I got to an interesting place, and a lot goes back to that. I keep pointing over there because that's where my bed is. That time when I tried to come off the benzos, and I was also doing the Golden Dawn praxis every day faithfully. And I really did get to a point where I felt like I was shedding layer after layer of programming until I found that there was no center to me at all. I was just nothing, and it was scary, but it was also kind of liberating to know that you're not your programs, you're not your parents, you're not your school, you're not your religion. You are just I don't know, just a nothingness, really.
Well, and to be honest, and you would understand this too, you would think that my detox from heroin or opiates would have lasted once and I'd learn. No, it happened a few times, right? But every time was this teacher and about humiliation. Oh my God, about learning to walk again. I remember I got over it in some dilapidated apartment in Phoenix, Arizona when I was 26. It sounds like a bad pulp novel, And I basically I had to learn how to walk and stand straight again. I probably should make, and some would argue I didn't make it out. Well, here we are. This is all just a dream in a way. But
yeah. Well, I was always fascinated.
To me, it was, the humiliation. That's what I want to say. It's the humbleness of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you think, were you into William Burroughs and Crowley and stuff before you started taking heroin?
Yes, definitely William Burroughs. Absolutely William Burroughs. I got suspended from school for bringing naked lunch to high school, and that just made me love it more. You could have just put that in a gun and shot the administration. That's what really. I mean, it's not the only reason, but my father bought me a first edition of Cities of Red Night, a couple years ago. Yeah. So it's I've always been a big Burroughs fan. But this brings another question I want to talk to you, but you had a point. I apologize.
Yeah, it's just I had a weird, perverse way of justifying my addiction. It's Burroughs talked about a worm that was kept permanently strung out on heroin. So the junk cells die, and then the new cells are born. And I was like, hey, this is keeping me young.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It does.
I mean,
you get
I'm 50
amphibious.
Years old, and I don't look a day over 30. Mm-hmm.
No, that's always been to me such a mythological, weird elixir. Of course you get addicted to this thing that ruins your life and makes you forever young. I don't know. It's just you can't write that stuff.
Well, it's a bit like Portrait of Dorian Gray, isn't it? Oscar Wilde.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The picture stays young, but you grow ugly and twisted in the inside.
Yeah, the picture in your mind of your self-image. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Burroughs say, you really get to know human nature when you're down your last, and you'll do anything for a hit.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely my darkest hour. What's funny though, to share in context, I was kicking this shit, and I basically went out to Arizona, which was the place that I think all of my troubles began as a child. And I thought that I could get right with it, but instead I used it as like this vacuum of, just grossness, yeah, to be nice about it. And that's when I came back into magic, was towards the end, is writing the intentions, creating sigils, stuff I had learned years prior and knew it, but never took it so terribly seriously. And some would argue that that's you're basically supplementing a faith, or and I would say that's good, that's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. But yeah, that's right. And that's kind of, it seems similar to where you were. Like, you got out of the darkness, you used this stuff, even though it was Reiki, it was, new agey, but at least it was something that kind of supplanted a faith in you that, like, there is a wonderment instead of a
meaning.
vacuum.
It had meaning.
Yes.
It had meaning.
Yeah.
And the channeling was useful at the time, it really, and I think if two people work together, there's the thing about the third mind. I don't want to get too Burroughsian here, but there is definitely, and I've noticed that with the Sam and Baz and Davey that I'm working with at the moment, that we really are starting to fall into this weird synchronicity mesh. Chapel perilous, as Anton call it. The synchronicities are just firing off all over the place. So I do think that group work is very powerful. And it's hard to be a solo magician, to keep yourself motivated, to keep doing the rituals.
Sure.
And often at the moment, I'm really not doing any praxis at all. I'm just kind of just being.
I appreciate that.
And it comes in cycles. All things are cycles for me,
Right.
I'll be tremendously creative for a while, and then I'll just flatline, and then it'll pick up, It's got some kind of rhythm to it that I haven't quite fathomed yet.
Well, how is it being amongst a group of peers that are all magically inclined, knowledgeable, all pretty non-judgmental of any other's, inclinations? Like, how is that? That's got to be pretty magical with the lost word.
Yeah, it's been very empowering, and we all come at the subjects from completely different places,
Right.
Sam is kind of a voodoo kind of guy. Baz is more Western tradition, but he does believe in spirits and stuff. Davey is more like the technical guy, and he's really into comics and druidism. So we all really come from different parts, but I think it does work when you put this all together. And we've had some great fun doing like spirit box sessions.
Right.
The spirit box where you flick through the radio.
Flicks through the radio,
yeah. So I've had some interesting stuff. I mean, I have to say, I'm in a relationship with a beautiful, that was kind of synchronicity. Everything seemed to come together last summer after 2018, June, July. I met Saroth Star. I had my zero experience, and then I started the YouTube channel. I had those big trips. Yeah. After years in the wilderness, it was like, finally.
Well, it's like you're still tempering your want and need for knowledge by having these awesome podcasts and discussions with people. It's almost like that is the only praxis you need.
Yeah, right? Well, at the moment, it absolutely is. And it's like Baz is in Australia, Sam's in America, Davey is Scottish, he's just down the road. But I could have never come across these people in Aberdeen, a tiny little, by American standards, it's barely even a town, but we call it a city. I think it's like 250,000 people, So they had one little comic book store. I've never been into comics, but they used to sell like Weiser and Crowley, Golden Dawn stuff. So I started, that's where I found all my magic books.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they would. Comics and magic have been the coolest confluence, for the modern age. But I want to talk to you a little bit about just, it sounds like where you're at, where I'm at, where you're taking less in from maybe the occultural aspects. You're taking lesson from this new neo, magic renaissance. You're taking more from in yourself and like the people that you talk to. Yeah. But I wanted to bring that up because that's been a fun topic with everyone I've talked to. How do you feel about where magic is right now?
Well, interesting times, isn't it? I mean, the internet has just blown everything open. Before, like I say, who could have imagined the technology that we've got now, that we are now talking instantaneously? It's like you're in my room,
Right.
Smartphones and all that shit. It's almost like the stuff that you used to really have to work hard for is now so accessible. It almost becomes, I can't be bothered looking at it, things that I would have been so excited about getting in a paper form. It's like, okay, every grimoire that's ever published, you can find somewhere on the internet. There's almost like too much information.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know. There's not many people that I follow, hardly any occultists that I really, oh my God, he's a new podcast. I must find out what's going on with this person or that person,
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
And to be honest, there aren't that many quality magic YouTubers or whatever platform they use. There are a few authors that are like kind of, you yourself speak to Mitch Horowitz. I've got a lot of respect for him. Carl Abrahamson, Robert Anton Wilson, I love, but he's unfortunately passed away. Right. You've got your, I don't want to name names, but you've got your kind of Become a Living God crew who have got their own kind of take on things. And then there's a lot of, David Griffin's tragic take on, the Golden Dawn. He turned it into Hogwarts.
Yeah. You also got like the Michael Hughes, buying Trump, stuff. It's almost gotten into like this political.
Yeah, it's very silly, to be honest. I still go back to my favorites, Crowley, Burroughs, Robert Anton Wilson, a few others.
I wonder sometimes, like, what is, would I be stifling other people by going, hey, you're not supposed to put all your eggs in one basket with one guru. This guru is not going to start the revolution. And I use guru intentionally negatively, because there is a large group of them now that, want to be the best occult, or the best occultists, or like is the reason why modern occultism is what it is, I'll just say. Or like you said, the YouTube hole of, what the left-hand path, quote unquote, has become, and it's a part of me is I'm offended, but I shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I honestly am coming around to think, and I never thought I could be a occultist because I'd never had any sort of clairvoyance as a child. I'd never seen little green men dancing in, the moonlight. I'd never been abducted by a UFO. But I do think, like music or art, you've either got it as an occultist or you haven't. And if you need to hang on a guru's every word and have to pay for demon summonings and readings, you're really barking up the wrong path. If you really do want to be an occultist, you've got to find your absolute own way of doing things. It's a very individual shamanistic path, you know what I mean? And I think shamans are born and not made.
That's a good thing to talk about. Yeah, to a degree, but born,
you can study
even through experience, learn. Right?
Yeah,
born or not. You can learn, but I think you learn from experience. That's how you learn, right?
And it takes
that's how we have to.
Yeah, I mean,
in this modern world, talking about Burroughs, talking about Kenneth Grant, talking about Crowley. These are all people that had cancel culture written all over them if they were happening now. And I think that there's something missing in the modern age about redemption, about people trying to strive well, to do well. And so these people that come out as crystal clean are very suspect.
Yeah. I think you have to struggle with your magic every day. If you're not constantly in a confused daze, or at least 50% of the time, you're doing something wrong. If you just think, okay, this follows that, and then I do this ritual and that happens, and it's all fine. Yeah. I don't sense the struggle and the inner confusion and drowning in a sea of weird languages and weird visions or experience. I don't get the sense with these people. I think they're putting on a show and possibly trying to make money and sell books, possibly, if they can even write a book.
It's funny. I think about that too. And I think about how, to me, there's more magic in a comic book and somebody's intentional creation of another world than there is in, that.
I guess the circuses and sideshows that some of these people put on are a kind of magic, but it's a kind of carne magic. And they can't honestly believe that the stuff that they're talking about is true. They're trying to sell it to people to make a living. And I think that's very dishonest. I've never asked for donations. I would love to. If people want to give me donations, please do. But I would never go out and ask for them. I think, if I write a book, you buy the book. That's an honest transaction. But if I'm going to ask you for $2,000 for me to put this spell, come on.
Yeah. No, it gets hairy. I'm glad it's so funny. I just think we're both synchronous in ourselves and where we are right now. And you keep saying that this is cyclical. Who knows what I'll feel in the other way. And to me, that's the healthiest way to be. Doubt means so much in this praxis. Absolutely. Like as a whole,
If you just accept every single phenomena as being absolute proof that there's, God is talking to you, or Horus is living in your back shed, you really have to put things under the microscope and be rigorous in your common sense, because I have seen people get swept away with this stuff and start to have delusional ideas, especially people that are a little bit crazy in the first place. And I would put both of us in that category. If we just start blindingly accepting any sort of fragment of gobbledygook that comes to us in meditation, oh my God, I'm the prophet of the new aeon. I mean, how many prophets of the new aeon have we had since Crowley?
It's funny, though, narcissism seems to be the most intrinsic value of these folks.
And especially when, I won't deny that being on TV, which YouTube feels like,
you are absolutely on TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube. I don't know anybody else. Yeah. It's awesome. It's great. YouTube is our TV. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. That's user operated. We can go into like all the troubles that we might find with the content that we upload from that. But I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your channel.
Oh, thank you very much. And I really dig yours.
But like if you were to ever be a part of kind of an international art collective, like being from a media that has garnered what you need from, like, say, YouTube, from what you're doing multimedia wise, like what would you want from that thing? What would you need from that thing?
That's a hard one, isn't it? I think for me, art is about like legacy, like leaving something behind. I don't think that people are necessarily going to get it this time around. It's like I used to have the same feeling about painting, not so much about like music when I was in the band, because that was more like playing gigs and people get it right away. Yeah. It's just leaving some proof that you were alive and contributing and maybe inspiring others, contributing to the sort of tide of good stuff. It's a very vague way of putting it, but there's so much bullshit and lies and damaging stuff out there that if we can enlighten people and educate them slightly and stop them perhaps from making the same mistakes that we've made, like people like us, if I was 18, if I'd seen someone that I trusted and respected saying, don't take fucking heroin, it's a waste of, it's going to kill you or waste 20 years of your life,
I think people are so afraid to talk about that. That's why I've been so...
Yeah. I still worry about talking about it. I tend not to talk about it on my own channel. I used to be so paranoid when I was in my last job because I thought, what if somebody, even though I changed my name, they could trace me through Facebook and they could somehow find my channel, find me talking about even being into magic is enough to make them like, oh, he's a bit of a weirdo,
Oh, totally. I actually the first conversation I ever had with Mitch Horowitz, he told me, and it's like, if you look at the past 30 interviews I've done, I can take one nugget of wisdom that I've actually applied, that I've been appreciative of. And that first one with Mitch Horowitz was, use your name. Even though I'm going by my middle name and last name, but it's pretty easy to figure it out.
Yeah, I saw that interview.
Yeah, and I really appreciated the idea of, trolls are gonna come. you're gonna get shit on. That's just the nature of the internet now. But I think the point of this, quote unquote crusade is to be honest about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like, this is your name. Like, Keats Ross is my magical name, honestly.
Yeah.
I make music under different characters or different names, but this is the truest one.
Yeah. But there is also what I felt. I mean, my name is Stephen Ray. It's a very prosaic sort of normal name, and I don't think the Stephen Ray experiment would have quite the same effect.
Though Ray is a pretty cool
Ray is
name.
Ray. And if you rearrange my name, it kind of comes to Nephitz Ra and all this kind of stuff.
Ooh.
But I do feel like there was a process in that. Maybe are we recording still?
Yeah.
I'll
edit out all the.
Yeah, there was a part in that formative mushroom trip where I felt like I'd been dropped. I'd taken a lot. It was like 7 or 8 dried grams of very good local psilocybin mushrooms, and I felt like I'd been dropped into a deep ocean of, oh God, when I first got down there, it was like, oh, I could barely breathe. And there were all these kind of skeletal birds flying around, and all these demons, as I perceived them. Oh, I'll cut you a deal, man. I'll get you out of here, because I felt like I was kind of in hell in a way. And I gradually rose and fought my way through all this psychic detritus and got to the place where I saw myself as a grizzled old white person, a kind of Vikingish looking person. That's actually why I got these runes tattooed, because in the vision I saw myself covered in tattoos and runes, and it was like, yeah, you're going to be Saroth the Mage, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Are those runes?
They're sigils, actually.
Yeah. And I think it is kind of, well,
stick and poke, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the eye in the triangle there, and Isis is all things are Isis there, and a few more.
We share nationalities too. Ross is obviously.
Oh yeah, Ross is very Scottish.
Yeah.
And you look like a Peely Wally Scot.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Peely Wally means pale.
Yeah. It's the gray. The gray does me well.
Yeah. I like the what's that hat called again? Burroughs wore one. It's not a trilby.
Fedora?
It's a fedora. That's the one.
Yeah. It's a hard one. It's not unlike magic. It's gotten a lot of flack from people that don't know what they're wearing.
Yeah. It suits you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. But yeah, I always wondered, across the pond, like you are an emblematic figure for a certain multimedia situation. to put it very lightly, you know? Like you're putting yourself out there, you're being honest, you're putting yourself out there, which is so big these days.
Yeah, it's the real me. It's there's no masks or disguises there, I hope.
I love that. So who cares about a name, you know? I mean, in the sense that, like, of course, take another name. It's your face, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, like, I've always written music or done things under characters. And I've been writing a lot about, you know, it's very self-serving in a way. Like, a good writer never just writes about himself, but a good magician always writes about himself.
Well, it's it's the only from being I did English at university, and I was very into creative writing, and I was in the Creative Writing Society and did poetry readings and stuff. You have to write about what you know. If you try and it just doesn't work unless you're extremely, extremely talented. Yeah, absolutely. The spilling of words onto the page, that's a magic. That's leaving time binding, isn't it? It's the written language thing, the art, leaving any kind of mark that can be seen by other people when you're not around is a magical act in my mind.
So tell me about what's the future. Where is the experiment going?
I never know from one day to the next.
I love that.
My immediate plans are to perhaps have really, I'd kind of gone off. You know how you kind of reject your early influences, and oh God, I'm so tired because I had Burroughs and all those guys coming at my ears. But now I've kind of returned to Burroughs, and I'm reading my favorite novel of his, Place of Dead Roads, again. Mm-hmm. Getting to know Kim Carson's again. So my next video, I think, will just be a reading from that book. But I am getting very bored. I've got a very simple, I'm not a technological person. I don't understand computers. I'm very, I can work vlog it, where you get a bunch of photos, cram them together, and then weird, so I make my own, but I can't play an instrument either. I can play harmonica. That's anything in one key I can play. I was a vocalist in the band. That's how I got by.
Hey, that's an instrument.
That is an instrument, yes. Perhaps the most difficult instrument. No, it's not.
Yeah, guitars. I mean, probably the most unadulterated, honest instrument. It's the one instrument I've had the worst.
Yeah, but I tried to learn. I tried to learn guitar and piano. I just couldn't get. I've got no. One thing about me is I'm not like. If I'm not immediately good at something, I tend to just abandon it.
Yeah. So I know how that goes.
I'm in many ways a dilettante, and I think there's nothing wrong with being a dilettante. I think not enough is said good about people that dabble in this and dabble in that, and you don't have to be an expert. And I think this is something that I got from a scar, because when The Lost Word started, it was actually, I wanted to do more sort of in-depth, intellectual, analytical discussions about major figures like Austin Osman Spare, Burroughs, Castaneda, Kenneth Grant.
Which those were great.
Yeah, but they're difficult. They're difficult people to understand and try and get across to an audience what these people are meaning, what you think they meant. And I was getting all tied up in knots. And I listened to, synchronistically, as ever, I listened to a Scarlet Imprint interview, and they said that YouTube and these media platforms put people into the position where they've got to act like experts. And I thought, no, we don't have to act like experts.
That's missing the point of YouTube.
The thing that I want to show is the process. We're not experts. We're just fumbling along like everybody else. So we're certainly no better, no cleverer. We're maybe just doing it just now, and maybe that person isn't, and maybe we can inspire them to start doing it.
And you can't blame the user for the symptoms of the viewer.
No, I was a viewer and a reader and a consumer long before I ever thought of starting my own magical practice, although I'd always been into art and writing.
Yeah. So, God, that makes me think that there is a lot of rub in a way, like a lot of pushback in a way for this glistening of what people think YouTube is, and it's ruining their idea of what YouTube actually is. The whole point of YouTube is that you're getting unadulterated, honest shit, but unfortunately that's not what the majority is probably now these days.
Yeah, and how do you sift through the mounds and mounds of bullshit to get to those little
algorithms?
gems, you know what I mean? Yeah. And another thing is, the live chat. I love the live chat because, I get far brighter people in my live chat than I am, and I think,
Right.
Why don't you make a video? But some people just aren't reckless or vain or narcissistic enough to. I don't think it's that actually. I actually, like I say, I kind of have to hype myself up. I don't necessarily enjoy live streaming and stuff. For a while, I just shrunk away from it completely. I thought, oh my God, I know I want to do that again. Why would anyone want to put their own ignorance and, lack of knowledge on display for all to see? But then, I'm a reckless kind of guy.
I love that. Yeah, no, at first, with the podcast, I thought maybe I should edit out all the disinflections, or what are they called? Disfluences, and or all of the ums and yeah. And I know podcasters that do that. And to me, it sounds like they never take a breath. And I think what's so lovely about podcasting, what's so lovely about hearing people speak is their rhythm and is their idea of
it's natural conversation
when they
speech.
breathe. When they breathe, they're trying to mine for these ideas.
I actually watched a video tonight, and it was like fast edits, chunk, and it was just horrible to watch. I have to say, it's just too busy. So I do like I think with the Lost Word podcast, because Davey is such a demon on the editing skills. At first, we recorded, and it was pretty much live, but we cut Kieran there. But then the last one we did was just a spur of the moment. I'd done that Crowley's initiation,
right?
That thing, that introduction he did, prologue, whatever you call it. And I just said, let's do a live stream tonight about Crowley. Everybody knows about Crowley. And I think that was the best show we've done because it was just so natural. It flowed. And the live chat, you get an energy. It's like, you played gigs. You get an energy off the audience and you bounce it back. And it's kind of like a tennis match. You're throwing them something, they're throwing something back to you. And I think with recorded shows, you miss that friction slightly. I do enjoy the cut and thrust of a live show, although some of them have gone, pear-shaped for me, to be honest.
I don't know why this made me think of it. Maybe it's because there's kind of a power dynamic between, the host and the audience.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the idea within the magical realm of like hexes, of curses, of putting your intent into harming somebody else?
I disapprove for a start. I don't think I would never. I mean, I have, and weirdly, this is might be an amusing anecdote, but when I was in the grip of addiction, and you had like gangs, kind of, I had my little gang there, and they had their little gang there, and one of their gang ripped off one of my gang, and it all got. So I did actually deliberately curse two people. The first one, now this is bizarre, and I don't make shit up. That is one thing about me. It's all true. The very night that I cursed him, he had a terrible asthma attack and was hospitalized. It was my little brother's friends that were around at the time. They were like, oh my God. And then about 2 nights later, flushed with success and filled with evil juju, I cursed another guy, and he had a car crash the exact same night. No fatalities, the car was bashed up, nothing too serious. But it's like, fuck, did I cause that? So I've never done it again. So I do think, discounting supernaturalism as I do, that there is some mechanism for cursing people. Because I had a fallout with quite a major occultist just around the time where a terrible incident happened at work. It wasn't my fault, but I was in charge at the time. A guy left a pan of oil on a stove, black smoke, fire alarm went off, major incident. I was hauled across the coals for it. I was like, was that him? And it's a dangerous mindset to get into. You're looking for curses and, so.
Right.
Yeah. I think they do. I think it is possible. I don't know how, but yeah, I think they are possible, but they're unethical kids who don't do it.
Do you think there's some sort of reciprocation, some sort of penance? To me, magic always felt like there is some sacrifice, whether it be small or big, that you do to make it happen. And really, to me, in the end, that's like you want to be better, so you sacrifice what's not making you better. To like put it real simply. But when it comes to putting all your focus on the will of somebody else or ruining somebody else, do you think there's reciprocation in that?
You mean can it rebound and
not like the Wiccan, thing, but like in a way, I think to me, the scary thing has always been if I flooded my brain or my consciousness thinking that I could affect someone so negatively by being so negative. To me, that's the curse on me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I always, the psychological model would tell you that the person has to know they've been cursed before it takes effect. Because that person just cursed me, so I'm starting to feel all these psychosomatic ills. But these two people didn't know I'd cursed them at all. And if I was cursed, which I still, people private message me on Twitter saying, "My God, that sounds like a psychic attack. Have you been cursed? Have you?" And I thought, well, I did.
Dion Fortune.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Psychic Self-Defense. Great book, by the way.
Yeah.
But I mean, magic for me is not about hexing and power over others and binding demons. It's about creativity, joy, spontaneity, living life as the master of your own destiny. That's the thing you've got to do is really realize that all the shit going on in your life is your life and you're responsible for it. It's not these guys out there that are making you do this. I hate people that don't take responsibility for their own shit. And it took me a long time. I don't think I was ever a big parent blamer or, I had such a hard childhood. I always have been reasonably good at taking responsibility for myself. You've got to take it to the nth degree. If you pass you've got to really embrace that idea of everything is either your fault or your credit. It's your life.
It's almost like the biggest magical praxis is forgiveness and gratitude.
Yeah. And acceptance and forbearance, bravery. It's all that shit. The hero's journey, you mentioned it before. Mm-hmm. It really is. You've got to, who was it that said that unexamined life isn't worth living? You've really got to put your own life under the microscope. And I think that's what a daily praxis, although I drift in and out of it, for some reason, the Golden Dawn praxis, although it's a Christian Judaic system, the words are all Yod He Vav He, nothing that I believe in, but it still stimulated a response which dramatically seemed to change my brain chemistry.
Can I tell you? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the magic. That's the mystery, isn't it? How the fuck does that work?
Yeah, I was going to say it worries me when there's a system of belief that leads you to conscribe to something that is daily, or not daily, I shouldn't say, but that is so systematically and mathematically placed upon the purveyor. It's almost like an instruction manual for them to figure out how to, I hate to use the word control, but how to take power from you in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But for me, being so undisciplined and so wasted, I think that the Golden Dawn, which was not it wouldn't have been the book that I chose. It was because it fell off the shelf.
Right.
I'm far more.
Is this the new guy that runs the Golden Dawn?
Oh God, no, David Griffin.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't even mention that fool.
I apologize.
No, this is by a very bright guy called Liam Thomas Christopher. Kabbalah Magic. Nothing to do with the new Hogwarts Order of the Golden Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Very well constructed book. He pretty much takes the psychological approach as well. But for me, something that I was far more attracted to a book like Liber Psychonaut and Null and some of the chaos magic stuff.
Peter Carroll, yeah.
Yeah. But I think for the time in my life I kind of needed that discipline. And it was like a course in martial arts. It taught me things that I'd never done before, like have a daily routine. My daily routine was go out, score, come back,
right,
lie down for long periods of time and dream about things that would never happen. And then all of a sudden I was really, neophyte. I was getting there. Zealoter, really, I had some breakthroughs. I had some truly spontaneous visions, although I'd never stuck rigidly to the instructions. I always felt free to tweak them here and there as I thought.
I think that's where I'm coming from is, the ability to engineer your own. Yeah.
Because I thought, well, if it was good enough for... I mean, it is a cobbled together system, the Golden Dawn. It's got bits of...
everything.
Yeah, bits of everything. But the pentagram rituals, the banishing hexagram rituals, the beautiful poetic invocations, the setting, setting. It's very. I think magic is like a slow burn psychedelic. Actually,
I would agree. It almost seems like method too, like the Lee Strasberg kind of acting.
Absolutely, yeah. You act it, and then you eventually become it. Yeah, inhabit That's very perceptive, actually. That was floating around in my thing, but I'd never quite put it like that.
Yeah, no, I've thought about that recently. I think because the point is to be the supra self, the higher self, to act this higher self. So what is that? You have to inhabit the character. You got to live in its shoes. You got to do these things which we all should do. I mean, this should be universal. Like, I think that we all have this higher inclination for ourselves. I think it's all attainable to a degree. Sure, there's some aspects that are just, you got to rough out, but like we should all be thinking about how to live big in a way.
Yeah. And I think you have to find ways of stretching yourself beyond your normal boundaries, whether it be, I used to do like crazy pranayama where I would hold my breath and then do like fire breath. And with the psilocybin, it really felt like I was pushing myself beyond any normal boundaries. And I always describe it as claiming, reaching for unclaimed psychic territory. Like you feel like nobody's been here before, and that might be just a drug-addled delusion, but I don't really see psilocybin as a drug. I see it as a sacrament.
I don't either. I really don't see it as a drug either. And, I always tell like my younger brothers, I'd rather you smoke a joint than drink a beer in a way, that kind of elevation of shit.
Yeah.
But I often wonder, like, is it the physical aspect we need in magic? And like you're talking about, the dragon breath sort of thing.
There has to be.
We need the exasperation. Yeah.
There has to be physicality, or it's all just pipe dreams and it has no substance. I think that
it's a humbling thing, right?
I think a lot of magic ritual is pulling stuff. I mean, you would say in classic Kabbalistic terms, you're pulling stuff from Yetzirah, the formative world, into your normal everyday reality. I mean, I do believe the astral world is basically just your imagination. I think we touched on this earlier when David...
but you also said, the collective unconscious, there could be some pull of everyone's imagination.
Oh yeah, I think that is for sure, because
there's an avatar of you, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that realm, battling against it.
And I am a big fan of Terence McKenna and his psychedelic discoveries, where he said, you can be sweeping up in the ashram for years, just take one DMT trip or psilocybin trip, and you don't have to do all that shit. It's very instant. And a lot of the tradition, I think if we're talking about occulture, I noticed it seems to be, maybe I'm just not moving in the same circles, but there was a big move away from chaos magic and postmodernism, and everybody was like, okay, we're getting back into Renaissance magic, and like where it all began, the grimoires and the Key of Solomon. But a lot of that stuff just seems plain silly to me, I mean, it's...
It just it seems like way more of a product of its time than the post idea of it.
It's like,
why
really
would you
hard.
go back to the the things that we've decided were outmoded?
It is outmoded, and that's really the path that I am on now, and especially when I've got the support of my brothers in the Lost Word podcast, where we are deliberately trying to push things a little bit further, spirit boxes, technology, anything that works, Just my basic philosophy is just throw a heap of shit at the wall and see what sticks.
I mean, I love the idea of the Lost Word. The Lost Word, it reminds me of Billy Childish. The head coats.
Yeah. Well, we'll put the was originally a typo because Davey can't spell. And I thought, the, because it's like it's the perfect. Temple of Psychic Youth and all that.
That's right. Yeah. Lost with an OV in it. But, I really appreciate the podcast. I love what you're doing. And please be a part of We the Hallowed.
I am.
I would love,
What do you think all the great artists have done? They've just thought, will I risk this? Picasso.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Picasso fan, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say he probably really liked his stuff. So
yeah, I was a huge fan, and I'm into all experimental. It's just experimental. Right. Just chuck it out there and let it bound off people and see what it fires up in their synapses, and it causes like a chain reaction of genius.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
All right.
I'm having to use a new editing program, so I apologize if the quality of the video is a little subpar compared to my last ones. I will figure that out as soon as possible. I'm really excited for 2020. We've got a lovely gaggle of weirdos coming up on this very podcast, and a lot of cool projects with We the Hallowed. Be sure to check out wethehallowed.org. Patreon at patreon.com/pragmagick. All music is by me, which is Dakota Slim at dakotaslim.net. Thank you again to Saroth, Stevie, the Scotsman, the gentleman. Really appreciate you, what you're doing, and stay tuned. Haunt on.